Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Hui Mei, and I'll be your MC for today. Okay, so as companies scale and accumulate more data sources and assets, the structure of their data governance works to provide understanding, security, and trust around an organization's data. Data governance is essential to an organization's overall strategy for data management and is part of a complete data ops practice, as it helps you to know what data you have, where that data resides, and how that data can be used. During this webinar, if you have any questions for the speaker, feel free to post it in the Q&A box below, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, let me introduce our speaker for today. Gary is the General Manager of BPI Technologies. He has many years of experience in analytics and data management solutions and heads this area for the InfoConnect Group, not only in Malaysia, but also Indonesia and Thailand. Let us welcome Gary.
Good morning. Thank you, May, for the introduction. Let me just say a big welcome to many of the attendees here from different parts of the ASEAN region. So good morning, everyone. Welcome. Selamat pagi ya kepada semua our customers in Indonesia. Last but not least, Sawadee Krap to our attendees from Thailand. Welcome. What I'll do this morning is that I'll talk a little bit in terms of the data governance area, but I will focus more on the information analysis because data governance actually is a big area in the framework. So let me share my screen right now. And if I can find where my, okay. All right. What I'll do is that I'll quickly run through. Let me just give me a moment here. Let me off my video because I'm having also bandwidth issue on my Wi-Fi here. Okay, right. I'm sure everyone can see this. I will run through the preamble for the data governance area. Then I'll share a little bit with you what data governance is. Then we'll zoom into part of the data governance area, which is the data analysis or data assessment. I try not to talk as much. I'll leave more time for my colleague to do the demo on the information analyzer to give you a better idea of what we're talking about here, okay? Right. I think we are all going through this globally in terms of the pandemic. This area has actually, escalated a lot of, especially in the area of digital transformation across different industries. The way we work from home and even for us, we're working from home more than we work from office nowadays, right? Essentially, the whole idea is to use technology, especially in the digital transformation, to drive new market opportunities, regardless of pandemic. I think the business has to go on. We need to identify where are the new market opportunities and how we can take advantage of it. Of course, naturally, I mean, I'm sure you all know that one of the key products that's been everyone is doing nowadays, especially in KL or Malaysia, is all the sanitizing liquid, the mask, the sanitizing liquid, and everything, which is used across offices, at home, and everybody. So it's a big thing right now, And these are the things that they're looking at. So from a business perspective, same thing. Whether you're in the insurance area, banking or credit, we are trying to identify where's the business, where are the opportunities. So to do that, I think you need a lot of data, right? Of course, architecture is one thing, but the kind of data that you need to help you make the kind of decisions right, to drive the performance of the business, right? Or if you're looking into advanced analytics or AI for that matter, we all know that supporting all of these advanced applications will be the data, right? So the objective is look at the unified data management platform, which is part of it will be the data governance area, which you'll see later. The whole idea is to provision the organization and the business users with data that they can be used readily from a business perspective, right? So, I mean, if you look at the challenges today, I'm sure most of you all know that, 79% according to IBM said this is actually causing a lot of the digitalization, and this pandemic, right, essentially helped to escalate this digitalization by 96% of 5.3 years for the matter. Now, of course, as I mentioned, that every business users, right, across all industries, they're looking at cost management, right? How can I retain my existing customers, meaning to say that I retain my revenue, and at the same time, how can I actually acquire new customers? Who do I target? Where do I go? What are the products that I'm going to position to get the best bang, based on my marketing and campaign costs, right? In terms of revenue, right, same thing. What kind of opportunities are we looking at? How do I upsell? How do I cross-sell? How do I bundle them together to give them, the best bang for the buck, right? So in order to do that, we look at customer behavior, for example, right? So in all of this, right, converge into, from a system perspective where, you have enough data to substantiate the kind of decision that you make, right? Is readily available, right? At the same time, you also do not want to expose customer private details and whatnot. So there's a regulatory things that come into play. All these things still coming in from a digital perspective. Okay. So as I said, and all of this, right, coming into, I'm coming from the technology perspective, right? Say the demand for predictive analytics, right? The demand for reporting analytics. We want to look at customer-facing applications, mobile, for example, the customer experience, right? How can I make it easy, make it fun, make it exciting for the customer to transact with us, right? So that kind of experience retain them and keep them coming back. And at the same time, by word of mouth, they promote our products and services, right? What are the prescriptive analytics? I understand that after doing the customer segmentation, the customer behavior, I understand this, right? I get a perspective in terms of what kind of products that they are looking at. So what do I do in terms of prescriptive analytics? What do I do? What should I do? So you're using the technology to provide automated business insights, right? So there's the machine learning, deep learning, and I think most of us here are like data warehouse, data lake, data virtualization, right? All of this has a direct impact in terms of the business value creation, right? The kind of decision that you make, it has to be qualitative, substantiated by facts, right? And that impact the go-to-market strategy, your go-to-market strategy, your go-to-market approach, and how you want to attack the market, okay? And at the same time, systems like this, advanced analytics applications like this, right? Whether it is successful or not successful depends a lot on the adoption by the user. So if you are putting in data that's, doesn't make any sense, no meaning, eventually it will be phased out, they're not going to be used, right? So that impacts operational costs. So that's the preamble portion that I want to share. And as I mentioned, right, from an end user perspective, they don't really want to know how you want to meddle with the data, how you clean the data. They are looking at stuff like this, customer analysis, right? For example, in this kind of dashboard from an education center, for example, right? What kind of enrollment are we looking at? What kind of courses they're looking at the customer parameters in the gender, age group, the segmentation, right? Stuff like this. They want to analyze it because information like this helps them to make certain decisions. It helps drive the business, right? You're looking by the customer segmentation in terms by geographical location. I'm looking at profit by my individual branches, for example. How do they prefer to pay, right? By credit card, by debit card, by bank, and so forth. We're analyzing all of this. Then we look at the marketing and campaign analysis, right? If I'm going up doing electronic direct mailers, how many emails have I sent? In terms of Facebook, in terms of Instagram, how many likes did I get? What are comments? So we're analyzing all of this, right? How many to send, how much to receive, how much to open? Where is the, the focus, right? So this is one for sales and marketing. From a banking perspective, right? What kind of loans are we talking about, right? How much was approved, how much was originated by branch and by zone. Looking at all of this has a direct impact in terms of the kind of decision that they make and what are the actions they have to take, right? In terms of credit application, right? For example, how many submission was put in, how many has been approved, how many has been approved but not taken up, for example. These are kind of things that from a business angle that they're looking at, okay? Then you look at churn analysis. Why do customers run away? What are the reasons? Chances are this kind of data that you see on the dashboard on the screen right now is all captured through applications that's not within the organization, right? It can be from a CRM, it can be from social media as well. So you want to collate and understand, right, all of this. From an insurance perspective, right? For example, they're looking at my sales, what is the total gross written premium done? What is the net premium, right? In terms of new business versus renewal business, right? New business is where I need to go out and find new customers and sell new things. My renewal business is about my existing business, but I want the customer to keep coming back. Then I look at all the KPIs and whatnot, right? And then you go into predictive analytics, right? I want to know which customer is going to run away, the churn, right? But in order to understand the churn, for example, what is the, let's say, turnaround time for when I submit a claim, right? For example, what's my service rating? How does the customer feel about our service? So we're looking at all of this, right, to determine the correlation, for example, between the customer segmentation relative to the products that you sell in terms of renewal, right, in terms of services or whatever product you're selling. Okay. Same thing, right? Here you have doing the salesperson segmentation and analysis. Okay, all of this. Now, let me quickly go through all of this. Now, all this dashboard, all this predictive analytics, advanced analytics, right? And the algorithm that we put in to display that kind of information for the end user to use need data. Okay, data is very important, without which, right, it makes no sense. Whether you have a very advanced, beautiful looking dashboard with all the advanced function features, but the data, you know, if it's not readily available and doesn't make business sense, it's worthless. Okay, so that a lot of value is still being locked up in silos of information, data repositories, and a lot of times it's not business ready. So this is a report that I got just this morning, done in the, I think last month or this month, earlier this month. They surveyed, this is the one done by the AI data and analytics company in the US. They surveyed about 400 plus companies, right, across 100 over countries. And if you look at the breakdown, 34% is all related to data operations, yeah, right? And the industry breakdown is across many, from financial services, industries, technology, industrial, consumer, government, education, and so forth, right? Different industries. And then you break it down by region. So within our region, the Asia Pacific side is 28%, right? That was surveyed, and culminating to the 34% in terms of demand for data operations. So let's get down to the data operations relative to data governance. As what I've shown you just now in terms of all the various dashboards and predictive analytics dashboards and whatnot, the amount of time that the data scientists, the data architects spend to prepare the data. Majority of time, I think we took up 80%, right? This is a survey done by the Data Scientist Report, right? From our own experience, it's about the same. We spend a lot of time understanding the data, discovering where the data is and what it's all about, ingesting it, integrating it, and determining the quality of the data, right? And how clean is the data and how business ready it is for use. So a lot of time is spent doing the data operations before we can actually populate it into applications like the dashboards, the reports, and the analytics area. Okay. And this is a typical topology insofar as how this has been done. And what I'm trying to say here essentially is that the adoption and the business impact, right, is very dependent on how trustworthy or how clean or how qualitative is the data, right, coming in from different sources. So, yeah. So essentially here is that success of a deployment for such application is very measured on the user adoption, right? It's based on the business impact and the application that it has and it can provide, right? The business impact essentially is measured based on the data management approach that you use. Naturally, if the data coming in, like as I mentioned earlier, if the data coming into the reports and the dashboards and whatnot is garbage, then it's garbage. Right? So essentially, from our experience in terms of implementing, not only the data discovery and data understanding, a lot of time when we before we actually go live, a lot of times actually spend in UAT, right? In terms of determining the validity of the data is coming in for the consumption of the end users. Now, this is a report from the McKinsey, right? You can see a lot of the companies in terms of the lack of data quality, right? They spend a significant amount of time doing non-value-added tasks instead of doing the one they're supposed to do, is about understanding data, discovering data, compared to leading firms with a mature data management platform. They spend about 74% less time, okay? So insofar as the framework for the unified data management platform is concerned, as you can see here, the data ingestion and data integration, right, moving into the data quality, then the governance and curation, and then this is where the self-preparation exploitation is done by the more to the end user's perspective. Underlying it, right, underlying not only the data governance curation, part of the data governance is essentially the catalog and metadata management. Okay, now this webinar today, as part of the entire data governance framework, we will cover data quality today, right? Because we are running a series of webinar, I think about 4 or 5. The next one we will cover, once we are done on the data quality, the next webinar we will cover on the data governance and curation, as well as catalog and metadata management. Okay, this is a separate topic by itself, but I won't cover today. Reason being because this area has a dependency on the data quality. So I'll just bring you guys on a step-by-step basis. Okay, and then later on we'll do the data ingestion and data integration. That will come more to the data cleansing area. Okay. Now, on data governance, the survey done by the Data Warehouse Institute, right? 75% says that they want the end users, the user easy to make it easy for them to search for data and find data, right? They want to improve data governance in terms of security and regulatory adherences. So that's where the cataloging and the metadata that comes into play, which I'll cover in the next webinar. Okay, from the insurance perspective, right? The Accord reference architecture, at the heart of it all, at the heart of this architecture is actually the data governance, the business glossary, right? Supporting all the components like data modeling, the framework, and so forth, right? So then what then is data governance, right? Essentially, it is actually the organization and the implementation of various data policies and procedures, right? That you put in to enforce the rules of engagement right? And accountability for all the data used by different people within the organization. The whole objective, right, is to manage the corporate asset, which is data, okay? Now, the compliance goal, I mean, we are okay with it insofar as PDPA, IFRS or MFRS, yeah, data privacy, security. I mean, the data governance portion allows you to define the policies and the procedures to mask some data, yeah, to make sure that it's not available and so forth to certain users. So you can do that. But we come in from the technical perspective. Top of the list is data quality, right? The standardization and consolidation, which I'll cover in a short while, and the various documentation for metadata and data catalogs, which we'll cover later. So you see, as you can see, it's culminating to, once it's all done, it's culminating to dashboards, visualizations, and analytics. Okay, so let's talk about this area today. Right. So what are the dimensions of data governance as far as data is concerned? There are 4 key areas: the process, the business, the technology, and the people. Okay. So if you look at the process, right, your data steward, right, your data governance board, right, these are they have the direct interest in data quality, how to secure the data, right, the privacy into the standardization, consolidation, right. Essentially, these are the interest stakeholders. Can be from the information system or can be from senior management, okay, or can be appointed from various business units. From a business perspective, is they are looking in terms of risk reduction, as I mentioned, compliance, and regulatory and privacy concerns, okay? Now, the processes, in order to encapsulate the business requirements and the individual stakeholder requirements, is where we are using a system to actually define the policies, the rules and procedures relative to data, right? How it's been used within the operational processes and the management processes, right? And where we come in from is actually from the technology perspective, the data governance tools, right? Directly enabling the various activities related to governance, right? These will include like data modeling, metadata management, data quality management, and data discovery. So that's where the focus will be today on my webinar. Right. So if you look at the data overall life cycle, right? The data creation, right? When the data was created, and how do we store the data, and how data is moved between applications and within applications, right? And how it is used within applications, and ultimately retiring the data, right? So the data governance framework, right? It has to be able to have some, to be able to measure, right? The various governance measurements, right? The data analysis, okay? The data cleansing and data profiling. Because at the end of the day, right? Why we look at data analysis? Once we understand the data, then we know what to do with the data as far as data cleansing, matching, consolidation is concerned. Then we profile it. So in order to ensure that the quality of the data is consistent, or we want to know, we want to measure on a periodic basis every month, for example, right? If that is the internal procedure, to see whether there's a drop in data quality or there's an increase in data quality. And from there, we can decide, right, what we need to do, what actions need to be taken to ensure that the gaps are enclosed. Okay? So from a usage perspective, like I said, as I mentioned, you define the standards, right, to define the guidelines to manage the data across the life cycle. We need to establish a data quality index, which you will see later in the demo, right, and to measure the compliance to the standards defined, which Darren will be showing shortly, right? And how do we manage data issues, data changes? Now, stuff like this, the data is coming in from where? Various applications, right? And a lot of times, this data captured, it can be manual data entry, it can be scan data entry, it can be cut and paste, yeah? So we want to look at all of this as well. And of course, from the data governance, the board of data governance, right, you want to review the processes constantly, right, to ensure that it is consistent, there are no gaps indicated. So if you want to run governance, for example, how do you do it? What are kind of guidelines, for example? So I borrowed this from McKinsey, right? So if you're looking at churn analysis, for example, or you're looking at upsell, cross-sell, right? These are all the advanced analytics. Or it can be regulatory reporting or financial reporting, right? All of this, which some of which I showed just earlier in the dashboards and whatnot, requires the foundation, the foundation of data, one of which is the data architecture. And at the very bottom is actually the data governance. Who owns the data? What are the policies? What is the data lineage? What does the data mean? Where do I find the data? How is the data computed? All of this is coming from the governance layer. Okay. And normally, if you want to embark on such an initiative, one of the ways, recommended ways, is that you use an agile method. Right? You start with a limited scope, a few subjects, right? Not across the board, right? Start from there, and then as you establish the subject area and you learn where are your downfall, you improve from it on the second iteration, right? So the agile data governance is much more effective to come in from a business subject area, right? So you can have more collaboration within that business areas. The duration shorter, it's fast moving, and you can actually deliver the functionalities and business capabilities faster because it's a limited scope. Then you continue with multiple iterations, learning from each iteration. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. In fact, there's a recommended way of doing it. Okay, when we do that, we are now aligning, right? The data engineers, the data architects, the guy who ingests data, the guy who does a lot of those data extraction, transformation, right? From different various sources, combining them, right? Going into the quality of the data insofar as understanding the data, right? What do we need to do once we understand the data? Then this, at the very center, is the governance, right? The governance people who actually help to bridge the data engineers with the data consumers. It can be the data scientists, it can be the business users, it can be your management users. So this is a very important layer to bridge the gap between the technical guys at the back end, the data guys, and the end users. So if you look at the quality side, right? How do we, again, from the Data Warehouse Institute, right? Two-thirds, they want to improve data quality and trust, right? They also want to see that there is a data catalog and metadata management, right, established as a base repository in order to have a full so-called dictionary of all the data and the meaning of data put in so that it's easier to understand and easier to find, rather than looking for the person. Yeah, that person may not be in a company after a while, right? And of course, somewhere down here is 36% wants to improve the kind of data transformation pipeline development, right? That one has a direct impact in terms of data quality and the governance area as well. Now, let's drill into the data quality management framework, right? Earlier, I talked about the dimensions of data governance from a data perspective. Here, we look at data quality. Number one is we need to do data assessment, which Darren will be showing very shortly, right? We want to measure and analyze, because once we understand the data, then only we can do the data cleansing, whether it is standardization, correction, or passing, or you may want to do data enhancement. Some may want to do matching and consolidation as well. I'll share a little bit with you in terms of a little bit what each area means. Okay, let's go into the profiling portion. Okay, so the data comes in, you want to analyze in terms of the what are different classes of structure and content and quality, right? You want to investigate and standardize and monitor the kind of data quality that you have currently in the system. Okay, so the data cleansing will start, as I mentioned, in terms of data assessment, right? Understanding your data, right? Analyzing your data. Then we do the standardizing, matching, and underlying again is the data governance. So from the assessment, right? Information analysis, from some call it data profiling, some call it data assessment, investigation, right? We are looking at, from the data perspective, the value from a single domain, from, in terms of how complete are the data values. For example, if you have partial data values, right? Substrings, suffixes, prefixes, right? What are your different data formats, right? There's alphanumeric, blanks, null, which I'll talk a little bit, very interesting. The null values are very interesting. We'll talk about that a little bit, right? The combinations of, various data formats, okay? So what do we do actually? So for each of the table, we do column profiling, okay? We are looking at the metadata value, right? And we examine them. From a table profiling perspective, we are looking at dependencies. What are the primary keys, the uniqueness of the key, secondary key? What are the dependencies, right? We also do cross-table profiling, right? Insofar as the redundancy and relationship, right? Then we analyze the data profiles, the values, the frequency, and the data quality rules. This is about knowing your data before you actually do, let's say, data cleansing. So for example, if you bring up a table, right, you look into your column profiling format. So we can look at the, in Malaysia is our IC, identification number. It will tell you that it detected, for example, different formats, in the table, in your data, 14 formats with dashes, right? Some of it without dashes, some are like a combination of alphabets and numbers. Right? It gives you the frequency, right? So it's one. I think it's similar for Indonesia and Thailand as well. You can detect all these different formats as well, right? Your postcode, some are 5 digits, some are 6 digits, some are null, for example, right? So it's able to give you this kind of business insights, right? In terms of the cities, for example, Jakarta, how many, from the address perspective, how many cities were in Jakarta, how many in Bandung, for example. So it gives you all these distribution frequencies as well. Similarly for male, female, right? Some, this is data entry error. Some is male, some is female. Because it's not controlled, then it can be perempuan, lelaki, for example. Yeah? So it gives you that breakdown. Okay? From a null value perspective, sometimes in a table, the field could be defined as null, but through whatever reason, right? Backdoor, data patching, for example, null values detected. Okay, so it's null values impact computation. It also impact integrity of the number of rows selection as well. Therefore, when your computation is impacted, this impact the user perception of the application implementation quality. It impacts the timeline because now you need to go back and say, hey, the reason the total sales value is this figure because we detected there are null values in your fields, which is not supposed to be null, for example, right? So that kind of impact delivery timeline. And then the most important of all, as I mentioned earlier, is because when you have all of these issues coming out, and from an end user perspective, we look at this number is not trustworthy. Therefore, the user adoption is totally impacted because they don't trust the numbers that you're presenting with dashboard. So it's important to go through the profiling to understand what you have in your data before doing what is necessary to fix it, and then populating it to the end users, the business dashboards and reports. So we do this kind of investigation as well. So this is an example that I've done, a project I've done a few years back. This is very simple, right? Essentially what you see here is, these are not manual data entry. This is actually scanned, right? From other forms. So there could be, short forms like Jalan, JLN, same. What is this same? Essentially, I'm very guilty of this as well, because sometimes when you apply for credit card, for example, they give you a form to fill in, the billing address, residential address. So I also will write same inside the billing address, because what I'm saying is that my billing address is the same as my residential address, rather than filling it all in again. So stuff like this has been detected, and we help our customers to do the standardization and cleansing as well. Okay, but this is the kind of profiling that we are able to detect, right? To actually show our customers that these are data that you have currently, and we'll fix it for you. Okay, so talking about standardization, here we're talking about parsing and correction. Okay, so as you can see that there's a lot of stuff inside here. Rather than I talk about this, let me show you an example, right? And I've seen this many times in our customers' implementation, right? They got BPI technology S/B, then you have the BPIT, Sanjay Brahat, BPIT S/B again, and then you get a full swelling. Essentially, these are all actually referring to the same customer, okay? But because the data entry has been entered in such a way, the system definitely recognizes it as different entities. So if you have a question in terms of which customer has a higher sales, naturally, if you look at this table, the IB manufacturing based on the sales value is the highest, okay? But if we do our data profiling and we understand that we have something like this and we do the parsing and consolidation, right? Then we are able to say, these are all the same. We will standardize it to BPIT, and we aggregate up the numbers. As such, this will say that, yeah, the highest sales is generated by this particular customer, 20,000. Yes, I've seen this many times in customers' data, and we come across this as well. And this is nothing to do with the system, but it's more to the data entry portion and the source system that they key the data inside, right? So we help them to standardize this as well. Okay. In terms of the data cleansing or deduplication, right? The system, what we work with essentially is that they are built-in matching types as well to give you that kind of correlation, right? So for example, if you have a customer in one application, right? Budi, Y, and Badrus Waludin, right? Another application, you may have Budi with a Y, John, Badrus Waludin, and then address, zip code, and whatnot. So the system, rather than you eyeball it for every record, the system should be able to help you to identify based on a probability matching, right? To show you that we detected this, right? Do you want to standardize this? Do you want to accept this? Okay. It gives you that kind of a bit of AI inside there to help you do all this matching as well. Okay. And which one what record do you want to retain? For example, I may have three records detected from three separate applications, right? Let's say customer name, the customer different key because they're from different application. One is entered as Ronnie Zakaria, the street address. One is Antonius Ronnie Zakaria. One is Ronnie Z, right? Look, based on the matching, it's able to come up with this and say what kind of what rules do you want to find? I want to keep the customer name with the most frequency. I want to keep the longest address. I want to keep, you know, the date of birth that's been the one with the most frequency of date of birth, and the place of birth in terms of the frequency as well. So you can define all of this and then standardize this in the system itself. So we do the match output and we do the survival, which record to retain. One of the cases in point that we work with our customers extensively because of the digitalization, as far as data profiling and data cleansing is concerned, is nowadays, right, a lot of the premium statement, your credit card statement, your renewal statement, your invoices are all being sent electronically. So one of the key areas is in order to minimize the rejection, right, the delivery failure, we help our customers to actually profile the email IDs, right, the customer information, the customer billing address, right? So it's very important that this all get through to the right customer with the right information at the right billing address. Few months back, one of the banks has this problem, right? They send the information, their statements to wrong customers because of there's some variations in terms of addressing email IDs and whatnot. It was actually in the paper. And of course, with this, right, impacted their stock price as well. Okay, I'm coming to the end of my presentation before I turn it over to my colleague to do the demo, right? So essentially what we are talking about here is from an end user perspective, right? They can be asking many questions like, who do I contact, if I have questions about the data? Very, very standard questions that come across many, many times, right? Where can I find the data? How is it computed? What source does it come from? Which field does it come from, right? What is the business definition of this particular data in my report, right? And they're looking at lineage, right? What are the policies that actually is encapsulated within this particular data, right? And what are, for example, what are the possible valid values that I can use? So with a system like this having governed the data, this kind of questions can be easily handled, right? From the user perspective, rather than finding different people based on the different questions. So if you're on a journey for this analytics, right? What you're looking at, whether you're reporting, it can be advanced analytics or decision optimization for prescriptive analytics. Definitely you need a foundation, a platform for data management and data architecture modernization as well, right? Of course, what you see here essentially is the InfoSphere information server, because we are IBM business partner. We work exclusively with this InfoSphere information server that comes with data integration, the quality side, as well as the governance as well, right? To actually bring you that unified data management platform, okay? And what we're trying to do essentially is to help you to align the technology with the business, okay? So this is actually a screenshot of our overall solution and services offering, right? At the bottom here, essentially is the entire data operation layer, right? The integration, the assessment, the cleansing, and I just talked about, and the governance, right? This is actually, we are using the InfoSphere information server to manage the entire data operations layer. We do have data warehouse, data modeling as well, culminating to the data visualization, in terms of Cognos with AI infused, as well as predictive analytics. It can be, SPSS, or it can be the more advanced applications like Watson's. Irregardless, what we're trying to do again is aligning the technical with the business expectation, right? To help them drive revenue, okay? Now, what I'm going to do now is that Darren, my consultant, he will now do a quick demo on information analyzer in terms of data quality, okay? Because as I mentioned earlier, this has a the data governance that I'm going to show in the next webinar has a dependency on this particular area, right? Without which it doesn't make sense, So let's talk about the information analyzer, and I'll come back again shortly after the demo and we'll talk about the different areas as well. Okay, so Darren, I will stop sharing. I will turn the floor over to you. Okay, Darren, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Garrick. So good morning, everyone. So give me a moment to share my screen. Okay, so let's get started by logging in the information server using the InfoSphere server launchpad, and then select the information analyzer. So after setting up the connections, select the data catalog tab at the top of the screen here. So you will see that all the metadata that's imported via IMUM, which is the InfoSphere metadata asset manager. So it can be used in any current information analyzers projects. So let's click on the sort icon here. So we can sort the data sets based on either the name or data quality. So we also can search for it by typing in the keywords of the data, of the metadata that we are looking for. Sorry, give me a moment. Let me log in back to the information analyzer. Okay, so we can also search for it by typing in the keywords of the metadata that we are looking for. So by clicking it, so we can see there's a list of search options here where we can select to filter the result. For example, like database, schema, dataset type, etc. So we also can see how many filters that have been applied on top of the keywords search field here. So let's say we would like to add one of the data sets into our project or workspace. We can click the ellipsis icon at the top right corner here, and then add to workspace. Okay, so here we can either add the table by creating a new workspace or add it into the existing project or workspace. Okay, so once the data has successfully added, so IA will show all existing project under the workspace tab at the top of the screen here. So let's click into it. So we go over to the project that or workspace that we have been created, which is a webinar demo. So open the workspace. Okay, so from here we can see that we have added 4 data sets in total. So at a glance from the workspace overview here, we can see that we have series of data classifications that were found, and we can see that actually Boolean with 16 columns across all the data sets in the workspace. We also can see that all our data are pretty high in the quality, which shows in green in our bar chart here. And we also, by the way, we also can see where are we in our process. You can see that we have done some of the relationship and also the activity analysis as well. So let's drill into the 4 data sets that have been added into this workspace. Okay, we can see that actually there are 3 of the data quality scores that is in green, which means actually all of these have passed the threshold that we have set in the IA analysis setting earlier. So, and actually there is one that we yet to analyze. So let's take a look into the dimension user data sets with 88% data quality score. And we also can see that there was one term being assigned to one of the column. 4 nodes have been added, and no rules have been created so far. So let's open the data set. Okay, we can expand all the section here to have a better understanding and insights. For example, like under the governance summary here, we noticed that 4 nodes were added, and then no term assigned and 1 term assigned to a column. So we can document the anomaly findings using the node function here by adding a node. Yeah. Okay. So we also can view what were the nodes that are being added, for example, the postcode column. So by clicking it, we can see that the title and also the descriptions are at the bottom here. So moreover, we also can have a better understanding on the data quality, column properties, data classes, and governance artifacts such as data classes, data types, data formats, so as rules and primary and foreign key analysis. So let's expand the the section of primary and foreign key. Okay, so from here we can see that there are 6 columns being identified by the system as the candidates of the primary key. So from here we can select, for example, like ID as the primary key candidate by checking the box beside, because actually it has 100% uniqueness, where we can see it from the distinct value here, 1,000 with and then unique values here also 1,000 means meaning to say actually it's 100% uniqueness, and also with smaller length and also identified as data class as well. So once selected, we can set the status as a selected candidate. Click the continue. Okay, so once selected, we can see that there is a golden key besides the ID column here, which means that this is the one that we selected as a primary key. Okay, so next, let's move on to the data quality sections. So we notice that the data quality score is lower due to the reason of missing values, which caused the data quality scores at the 83%. So let's hover over to the one that flagged out as red in the bar chart here and proceed to click on it. Okay, so from the left pane here, we notice that the missing value is due to the postcode column. So, so we go under the missing value sections and click on it, expand the sections. So in there are total 1,267 findings, and for postcode column, 996 postcode are found to be missing value items. So to display rows in postcode column for missing value, we can click on it. Yeah, to further drill down into the details of the data. So so we can see from here that actually under the postcode column here, all the rows are empty values.
So stuff like this may impact your, billing, for example, statements or whatnot. So this is where by just without doing any programming, uploading the data into the system is able to give you some such insights, from a data perspective.
Yeah, so we will proceed to select and click on the postcode in the left pane here to further analyze on the data attributes of the postcode column. So we can see that actually the data quality score is less than 1%. And since the blank and null values should be treated as invalid entries, so we will expand the format section. Okay, so we can actually change the status of it by clicking the edit button here. So we can see from here that we can uncheck the boxes under the valid column, and then we proceed to save it. Okay, so from here, actually, we notice that we need to run the analysis again to compute the updated data quality score. So there's sort of like a yellow warning message icon here that's showing that the data is actually outdated. So we can hover to see what is it about. So click on the analyze button on top of the page here. And then we rerun the data quality analysis again. Click on the analyze button So back to the workspace. So we can see that actually the data set is in the midst of running.
So while waiting for this job to complete, what I'll do is share a little bit in terms of, for example, using the example of the missing postcode. So I think earlier about 98% the postcode column was missing. Yeah. So now that we know that it is missing, the question now is that what do you want to do with it? What do we want to do with it? So before we can actually proceed to go and start putting in and inserting all the postcode for the relative city or the state that we're in, I think it will need to go through a step whereby the owner of the, let's say, customer data, right? The data customer data owner needs to be involved and then say, hey, you know, we detected based on 1,000 customer records, 98% are missing postcode. What do you want to do with it, right? So this is where the discussion happens between the rightful data owners. I mean the data owners, yeah. And so whatever they decided, for example, say, okay, we want you to start, say for example, to look at the address and map the right postcode into the fields. Then the guys will, take the postcodes, I mean, from the valid postcode from Post Malaysia or from the respective countries and start inserting the postcodes inside there, for example, yeah. So it needs to go through that kind of internal approval from the rightful data owners before this so-called data cleansing activity take place, right? To do the correction and the matching correction into the data itself, okay? So the process finished already, right, Darren?
Yes.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, so we can actually see the data quality trend. Yeah, so we can see that actually it has changed from the earlier 83% to 88%. So we can see the changes of the quality trends from here. Yeah, so the latest one is 88%. Okay, so in IA, we can also perform column analysis. So from here, actually, we can see that the dimensional user data set is 100% analyzed, and we can further analyze on the data sets with insights. So we just click into one of the table. So I will use back the example, the dimension user table. Click the open column analysis. Okay, so from here we can see further analyze on the data sets with insights such as cardinality, which is the uniqueness, data class, data type, with the information of infer and selected data attributes for a particular column. Besides that, we also can view the details of a particular column. For example, I will take the postcode as an example. So let's click view details. So yeah, we can further drill down into the empty or null values. Yeah, so we can see the details of the for the data set from here actually. So besides that, we also can perform baseline analysis. Okay, so where we can actually it allows the same table, for example, dimension user table. So I click view baseline analysis and then check the box of current analysis. So this allows the same table to be evaluated at multiple points in time where a baseline can be compared to either the checkpoint or to current analysis. So we can see the difference from the baseline summary and baseline difference here. Okay, so once we have finished all the profiling and analysis job, so we can proceed to publish the analysis result. So let's open the data sets again. Okay, so we can click the publish button here and then click publish. So once we publish, actually all the analysis result will be passed over to all the other information server components, for example, like data stage, information governance, catalog, etc. So we can view the and understand the metadata findings that we have example. So finally,
so that's why I was saying that we are doing this part in the webinar today, so that the next webinar we will talk about the governance area, because the results published from here will be, as what Darren mentioned, pushed over to the data governance and the metadata portion, right? That is where it's very key, as I mentioned in the presentation style, from the governance framework, the measurement, in terms of whether the quality has improved over time, in terms of the baseline compared to the current analysis. So because you need to track, right, the state of the data quality on a periodic basis. Okay, sorry, Darren, go ahead.
Sure. So finally, let us take a look in the IGC. So search for the database table, the dimension user. So we can just type in the table that or data sets that we are looking for. Okay, select the one that we are looking for actually. Okay, yeah, so we can see the published analysis result that we have published here with data quality score 88% and all the database column, and also some of the informations like a primary key and also the quality analysis. And also it includes the data nodes as well. Yeah, so that's wraps up, concludes my demonstration for today. Yeah, I'll pass over back to you, Garrick. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Now, this, just to extend from what Darren mentioned, the publication of the report, the data quality report, sometimes you may want to actually, archive it into your system that is out of the IGC, of the governance system. For example, I'm not sure if you have any customers, our customers, current customers, using DocuFlow, our enterprise content management system. If you are, then we can actually help to integrate these kind of reports into the document management system for your future reference, requirements next time. Yeah. So we can actually do that kind of integration and help you to do the various types of reports that you want to put into the document management system. So with that, the presentation side, let me go back to let me share my screen. So that will take us to the conclusion of this morning's webinar, right? For the demo, I hope that, of course, what we show you is very high level. This demo this morning, there's a lot more actually in terms of the details. Naturally, if you want to know more and see more things from the data quality perspective and data assessment perspective, do let us know, right? Then we can make arrangements to show you more. But essentially, as I mentioned earlier this morning, we are currently running a series of webinars related to data operations. So we covered the the data assessment side, or the data analysis side. The next one, we will go into the data cleansing, followed by data cataloging, metadata, data lineage, and data policies, which what Darren showed you a little bit just now, right? Where it comes in, okay? So if you have anything else, you can actually contact the respective people. On my slide here, you can see that May is actually our manager in charge of the marketing side, right, from Malaysia. And if from Indonesia side, we have our Mia, our beautiful Mia, right, as well as our handsome Pak Andy, right, from PT Info Connect. They can actually help to to coordinate more on the presentation and demo perspective. So with that, I thank you very much. I will open the floor to questions. You know, if you have any, then we'll take it from there. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks Garrick and Darren for the presentation as well as demo. Okay, so while we wait for, in the meantime, we will have a short Q&A session. So if any of you have any questions, feel free to type it in the Q&A box below. Okay, so in the meantime, while we wait for questions, probably we can address some of the frequently asked questions from our customers. Okay, first question is directed to you, Garrick. What would be, would we be able to conduct an assessment on your data before you commit to buying?
Yes, we can do we are definitely open to discuss and conduct a limited scope on data. We have done this before. I think one of those we've done some time back was just to give a glimpse in terms of the quality of their customer data, like quite similar to what Darren showed in terms of the data related to address, right, to email. So, yeah, definitely we are open to that. Yes.
Okay, all right. So moving on to the next question. Is the IBM InfoSphere implementation modular? This is for the case where if you're only interested in data quality at the moment.
Yes, it is modular, right? Definitely. It doesn't have to be a full set. You can go with the data quality, and then later on you can add on the information governance as well.
Okay. Okay. Next question. How long to implement data governance?
This one is a very subjective question. It depends on what your expectations are, right? I believe that one of the ways of going about it is to go on the agile method, as I mentioned earlier. Start with a small scope, maybe 3 months, 4-month kind of project, yeah, and then slowly continue evolving from, expanding from there. Because it actually is one, if you're starting with customer, for example, then the next iteration can be something else. It's actually building on each of what you have done before. So it's easier, so you're evolving, continuously, rather than you do a big bang. The risk is just too high. Then, manage smaller scope with a smaller risk. Then you get to see the deliverables much faster in a shorter time.
Okay, thanks, Gary. One more question. What is our focus in terms of advanced analytics?
Okay, currently, right, we have actually worked with customers in terms of from a telco perspective, from the insurance perspective, mainly on 2 key areas. But the one that we did a lot is actually churn analytics, customer churn. Reason being is because a lot of the customers are interested in looking at maintaining, or rather retaining customers, right, who are predicted to will likely churn. So rather than they churn and lose the business, they want to take some proactive actions to deal with the customer, and hopefully they, of course they cannot do 100% retention. Some will definitely churn, but they will try to retain as much as possible in terms of revenue retention.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Garrett. Okay, since we don't have any further questions, then I guess
saw one
you-
question. I saw one
Oh,
question.
is it?
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh, okay, okay. Yeah.
So the question is, Darren showed the missing record just now. Can we also identify any updated record for the same customer? Darren, will you be able to answer that?
Yes, actually, that's the main contributor for the lower quality data quality score. It also actually shows some of the others contributors as well. For example, like suspected values, or any duplicated values, etc. Yeah.
So if a record is updated, it will be able to show as well, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So in relation to the question, the answer is yes, it can show that as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Nur Aziza, for the question. So I think that's all the questions that we have for today. We shall wrap up the session for today then. I hope everyone have benefited immensely from the session. We thank you for being part of this event, and we hope to see you at our next webinar in our EDIM series. We will be sharing more on the event details in due course. Before we adjourn, I would appreciate if you could take just a few minutes to fill out our feedback form for today's webinar to let us know what you think of the session today. I have already included the feedback form link in the chat box. So once again, thank you everyone for coming, and take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.